Hey guys, I'm Rhino, otherwise known as AoE Only for the Win, and I'm here to bring you a tutorial on the 94 mob pull in Sunken Temple. It's sometimes referred to as the 100 mob pull, but I'll explain a little bit of that confusion in a bit. I did a 72 mob tutorial in a different video. It didn't get a lot of views, but I've been doing live streams where I've been doing free runs for people in Sunken Temple while doing the 94 mob pull, and I've had quite a few people wanting tutorials on how to do it, and so I decided it was time to make the tutorial on the 94 mob pull. I'm still undecided if I'm going to move on to the 150 mob pull, but we shall see. Starting off, similar to the 72 mob pull, I highly recommend trying out the jump spots that you're going to see in this video, maybe doing a full clear or doing a 72 mob clear, and then testing out the jump spots yourself just so you get comfortable with them, because as you're going to see, I mess up one of the jump spots and I actually almost die on a different jump spot because I happen to mess it up, and that can happen. So to prevent deaths, it's a really good idea to go into a clear dungeon and just practice those jumps yourself. So starting off here, I'm going to show you my gear first. My gear is nothing special. It is essentially just of the owl gear. I spent 100 to 150 gold getting of the owl gear, but this isn't a necessity. It just definitely helps to have a good amount of spirit. As you see, my mana quickly regenerates while I'm doing the kill phase, and so I'm able to do more max rank blizzards, which means I can kill them faster and do the runs faster. You'll also notice that unlike my last video, I have since learned engineering, and so I use the Gnomish Shrink Ray as a pulling tool during part of the pull, which I'll explain later. This just has to do with mana, saving mana. Essentially, it's not a necessity at all. You do not need engineering for this, just like you don't need the nature protection potions. It's just helpful. Every little thing like that will be helpful during the pull. Then I'm going to show you my talents. My talents are nothing special. I did reset them since the last video that I made, but they're your standard Frost AoE talents. There's nothing special about them. They're probably not the best they could be. I'll bet I could make some improvements, but I made them the way they are just because this is how I like to do the pull. A lot of mana regeneration, a lot of the resistance and absorption, which really helps on the pull, especially at later points. Speaking about resistance, so you don't need nature resistance or shadow resistance for this pull, but it definitely helps. If you don't have any, like me, I highly recommend the nature protection potions because they are very helpful, and I'm going to show you exactly where I use them. You'll see me use the consume, and you'll see the weak aura right here disappear once we get to that point. So starting off the pull, you're going to see that I make sure I have my food, my water, my gems up, and then I also have my ice armor, my arcane intellect, and my dampen magic on. So I have the extra intellect, or the extra intellect, and the extra armor. Plus, I have the slowing effect in case I do get hit. One thing that I do want to mention here, because this is actually important for the 94 mob pull versus the 72 mob pull, is I'm going to use two different phrases. I'm going to use the phrase double shield, or I'm going to use the term shield. So double shield is when you apply ice barrier and mana shield, and shielding, just if I say I just shield, that's just the ice barrier. There's a reason why certain places you don't want to use the mana barrier, and there are places where you do want to use it, or the mana shield, sorry. And so starting off, I am going to double barrier. I'm going to double shield just because mana doesn't matter here. I'm actually going to start the pull and I'm not even at full mana because I'm just getting to the reset spot. And here you're following your standard pull with the 72 mob pull, where you're going to run through here. If you are a lower level, if you're not 60, you might pull those mobs. You can just cone of cold them, and then I blink up the stairs. If you find a patrol here, just frost nova them and continue onwards. I, again, still to this point, even when I started at 54 all the way to doing it quite a few times at 60, I've never died during this part of the pull. So you definitely can not worry too much about it. It's a pretty easy part of it. Just run along, and then when you get to this point here, you just jump and you blink down. It's not really precise about where you jump to. Again, even at level 54, I wasn't pulling any of these mobs as long as you get the blink off. Then when you're going to get to the first jump spot. Now, as I mentioned, this jump spot is the most difficult of the three. And it's important to note that it's not time sensitive that you get this jump first try. I actually mess it up here. Yes, I'm still in combat at this point, but you will drop combat because the mobs are stuck up above. So you can spend as much time as you need to on this jump here. If you mess it up, you mess it up. No big deal. But just keep trying and you'll eventually get it. You'll eventually hop up and get up on the ledge, and then you just run along the ledge, just like with the 72 mob pull. All of this is essentially the exact same as the 72 mob pull, and I'll tell you where it starts to deviate here in a minute. If you do happen to fall off this ledge, just try to jump back. If you go to any of these corners here, you should be able to jump back up. If you do a jump forward and then release, you should be able to get back up into the corner. I like to mark the second dragon with a skull, and then as soon as they pass, once I have my shields up, I move on past them, and I get to just the other side of this ditch here. I select the second mob, and then I cast a rank 1 Frostbolt. There's multiple ways you can do this pull because mana doesn't really matter. You can do a Fire Blast, you can do Arcane Explosion, you couldn't do an Arcane Explosion, you could do Arcane Missiles, and then you pull them back into the dragon. I like to hang out near the tail of the dragon. As soon as you see the yell, then I do a blink, and I run to the ledge over here. Now, one thing, again, I mentioned this in the last video, but I want to mention it again just in case no one saw that video. The combat bug, which can happen, it doesn't happen here, is where you jump across this gap here and you're still in combat with the dragons. You see, I'm still in combat, but it resets pretty quickly here. There are times where I get all the way down to this second divot right here, and I'm still in combat with the dragons. If that happens, you want to stay on that ledge. You don't want to drop down until your combat drops. It happens like 30 to 40% of the time, I've noticed, where I stay in combat with those dragons. If you do hop down, they will come and attack you, and if you're not prepared, they will kill you. You're going to run forward to help the mobs render quicker, and they can get to the dragon faster, to the main boss faster. And you'll notice here I'm going to I'm going to double barrier again, double shield, and I'm going to also drink my nature protection potion. The reason for this is because this next part of the pull is where things get a little bit dicey. This part, if you're just doing the 72 mob pull, this part is super easy, super straightforward. The one difference here is you'll notice that I'm going to be keeping ice armor on, and the reason for that is because I'm still going to need it when we go on to the next part of the pull. I do the rank 1 blizzard, I blink, and then I also counterspell the Wormkin there. The only reason for that is just because of the nature protection potions. I want to save as much of that as possible, and so I counterspell him and then just frost nova any mobs that are stuck behind. Sometimes they're not stuck, but in that case they were. You want to blink as much as you can on cooldown, and you want to double barrier, double shield again right before you get to that candle there. Here you're going to see me blink yet again on cooldown, and then get around the corner here, and I'm going to do something important. So this is where I've seen other tutorials. What I like to do is different. I found a slight improvement, at least in my opinion it's been an improvement, and that's where I like to select the front mob, the mob that's closest to the boss, which is usually this third mob from the left right here. I like to select them, and what I'm actually going to do is, a lot of tutorials say to counterspell early. Instead of counterspelling, I'm going to use the Gnoma Shrink Ray. You can absolutely counterspell instead. It just costs a little bit more mana. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Shouldn't make or break the pull or anything like that. But basically, I blink first, and then I use the Gnoma Shrink Ray instead of using the Gnoma Shrink Ray and then blinking. And I found that it actually reduces the amount of hits that I take. So I'm going to run up here, continuing on with the pull, and I'm going to run along this inner ledge here and do a rank 1 Arcane Explosion. That pulls the mobs behind me. Then I'm going to jump down from the ledge, and I want to stay to the right of this pile of skulls over here. And I'm going to rank 1 Arcane Explosion again. Then I'm going to blink, and then I'm going to use my Gnoma Shrink Ray on the front mob that I targeted earlier. At this point, you will sometimes lose your ice barrier. You can reapply, and I also recommend double shielding if you need to. If you do get hit at all, it is a good idea to reapply your mana shield, but you want to make sure that you're double shielded for this whole portion here. You're going to jump across to this part of the ledge, and then you're also going to Frost Nova. I typically try to Frost Nova right before I get to that skinny part of the ledge. Here, you just keep running forward, reapplying Ice Barrier or Mana Shield as needed, and then as soon as I jump down there, I blink. And the reason is I want to have my blink off of cooldown for what you're going to see me do here in a minute, and you're also going to see me switch to Mage Armor here, because I want the increased resistance as well as I want the increased mana regeneration. At this point I have about 85 to 90% mana, which is a really good amount, and I'm going to continue regenerating that mana as I go along. But you're going to see me blink ahead here one last time, and then I'm going to do a rank 1 Blizzard to really group these mobs. This is vital. This is really important that you do a rank 1 Blizzard. And the reason being The mobs, when you do the pull, they kind of head in different directions, and so the way they're currently formed is a really long line. And so if I head onto the ice block spot and I ice block, they're going to continue running past me. They're going to kill me as soon as the ice block expires. So you want to do a rank 1 blizzard here to really group them up. You don't have to do a full one. You know, I typically go like a half or 2/3 cast of a rank 1 blizzard. Just so I can get them grouped up more, blink on ahead, and then I want to reapply my ice barrier. You do not want to double shield here. You're actually going to see me delete my mana shield because mana now becomes an issue. You're going to run up to the ice block spot. As I've talked about before, this jump here is really easy to do, but one that you definitely want to practice. And then right before the mobs get to me, I'm going to ice block. This is very similar to the 72 mob pull, where you're just going to ice block here, let all the mobs run past. Once your ice block wears off, you can absolutely first use your bandage if you need to, if you've been hit. I've taken usually like 50 to 60, not usually, I have taken 50 to 60% damage doing the pull, and so I have needed a bandage there just to be safe. And then here, I'm going to get to my kill spot. So I use this front circle here a little bit towards the back of the circle, just so the casters have a little bit more of a line of sight, which usually puts them in a really good spot to cast on me further back, so that way they're not coming forward and casting on me when I jump up on the ledge. So I typically am right about here, and you're going to see me do a rank 1 blizzard right here. I happen to get clear casting. I got lucky with the clear casting there, so I have more mana for this pull, but I don't need it. I absolutely don't have mana issues when it talks about doing the majority of the kills. So then I jump up and I do what I call a backdoor blizzard. So I talked about this in my 72 mob pull. A backdoor blizzard is essentially where they're on the way back. And so you jump up, they start heading backwards, and I pop a max blizzard right here. I only do max rank blizzards for the backdoor blizzards, but keep in mind it is a little bit risky. If you don't have all the mobs grouped up, you will end up losing some of the mobs because the ones that aren't getting hit are continuing on ahead down the stairs. But I had them essentially all grouped up here, so I wasn't too worried about it. Hop down, do another max rank blizzard, and I'm basically just going to continue that process of hopping back up and down. There I took some hits, and I actually got quadruple dotted, that's ridiculous. That's actually the first time I've ever been quadruple dotted, and so my health is falling. Here's where I struggle a little bit more. This is not a perfect run. There's definitely, some things I could have done better. I could have timed it better so I didn't actually take those hits. I could have timed it better so I didn't actually get dotted like that, and then I also didn't time it well, so this Wormkin is sitting here casting at me. Luckily I have the nature resistance up, so it's actually regenerating my mana a little bit, and I'm not taking any damage from it, but still, I don't like to have the casters on me as much as possible in case I ever need the nature protection absorption at any point. But here again, jumping up and back and forth, I used my mana gem, my highest level mana gem, as soon as I could. So that way I have them on cooldown, so I essentially have the most amount of mana available to me in the shortest amount of time in case I need to use another gem later on. And yeah, just keep hopping up and back and forth using my max rank blizzards. I do want to point out that even though this is a 94 mob pull, there are a few corpse eaters in here, which I actually have already killed 2 at this point based on the kill tracker, but it isn't the perfect pull. Typically, although I am pulling 94 mobs, I typically get between 88 and 92 mobs, depending on how many corpse eaters there are. Corpse eaters are a pain because obviously they regenerate. Right here is a corpse eater that is low health, that's regenerating. It's eating the other mobs, and it's regenerating its health, and so it's a lot tougher to kill them. I typically have to reset at least 2 corpse eaters, sometimes more. I'd say probably 10% of the time I'm able to kill all 94 mobs. But if you are able to figure out a way to be more consistent with it and kill all 94 mobs, better, more power to you. It's just, there's just a certain annoyance about them, and I find it easier to just not deal with them. Yes, I could wait for mana to regenerate, but then I risk losing out on mobs. Now, one thing that happens here is you'll see I actually fail the jump to get back up. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, so what happened there, that is, you'll see that I did the jump properly. I jumped forward and let go of W, but then I pressed W again before jumping. And so you see me doing the running animation and I fall back down. Instead of panicking, I just step back and I do it again. I take some damage, Yes, I absolutely could have died there, but I didn't because, I didn't panic. I've been doing this enough times where I didn't really panic, and if I died, I died. I'd just run back. It's not the biggest deal in the world. But I wanted to show a little bit more of, the imperfections of runs, because not every run is going to be perfect. And even when I've been doing this a while, I still, run into issues like that. Pop my evocation, pop the bandage, back to almost full health, back to full mana, and then I continue on with the pull. The one thing you want to be careful of is if you are boosting other people, which is something that I do during my streams a lot. I do free boosts. You want to be careful about using your evocation and bandaging at the same time, because any mobs that you haven't hit in that time span are going to lose their percentage of health. So if they're at 50% health, they're going to lose half of the experience on the kill because they weren't hit within 30 seconds. And so typically if I have other people in here, they're sitting by the entrance, I will evocate, and then I will hop down, I'll continue killing, and then on the next jump up, then I'll bandage. That way I keep the damage going so they don't get reset, they don't lose that experience. Cleaning up the mobs here, you'll notice that the kill tracker is showing 101. Nova Instance Tracker will also show the same amount as this kill tracker here. The problem is that once you're max level, it will count all mobs, not just experience generating mobs, and so it will count the skeletons and the spirits, which these do not give any experience. And so if you have a level 55 in the dungeon, it's going to show not having the 14 and the 5, so it's going to show, in this case, 20 less, so 88 kills so far of the 108 that I had. So this is kind of where the confusion comes from. Some people call this the 100 mob pull. It's not 100 mobs. You actually only pull 94 mobs, and although you may kill over 100 mobs, you're only experience generating 94 mobs who are the actual real mobs. And so you'll see, I believe I reset 2 or 3 mobs on this one. I thought I could get the priest here kind of at the back, but it's unfortunately the priests have this weird mechanic where when they flee from combat because their health gets low, they essentially just wander around. And they oftentimes, unless they get healed like that, they won't actually reset their combat, and so they'll just kind of wander around, and they could be out of range of your blizzard, and you can't really do anything about it. So in this case, I realized that I couldn't really kill this mob, and I only had a couple corpse eaters remaining, so I decided to go to the reset spot once I'm down. So at this point, I've killed 91 mobs. At this point, I just run over here, jump up on this ledge. Super easy to do. I've never failed this jump. And you just stand in the corner and wait for it to reset. It's better to do this than it is to regenerate your mana and try to continue killing to get the corpse eaters and any remaining priests or wormkin or wanderers or anything like that, because what ends up happening is after a certain period of time, the mobs that you have killed start to disappear, and so you end up losing out on loot, and the extra experience that you get for those last few mobs are not worth it. I find it's much better to just reset them, take the 91, 90, 91, 92 mobs that you've killed, loot them, and then move on to the next pull. By doing this, I'm able to hit lockout every single hour very easily. This was a very easy run to learn, but I do recommend starting with the 72 mob pull, because a lot of the same mechanics transfer over to this pull, and honestly, it was really easy to learn after mastering the 72 mob pull. I think I died, so I was successful on my very first attempt of this pull. I think I died on the second attempt, and all of my deaths during this pull have been based on my own error. For example, would happen when I was pulling the trolls. I would jump on a ledge, and then I would fall off into the group, and then I'm like, well crap, I'm screwed. I don't have my ice barrier, I don't have my blink, I don't have my frost nova, and then I end up dying. But overall, it's a very easy pull to do. The one nuanced spot that I would talk about where I've had the most issue during the pull is right here. So running along here, basically, so right here I've fallen off a lot. However, this is on the left side, so you're beginning the pull of the trolls. When you're running through this area here, typically if you do fall, it's not the worst thing in the world. The mobs are far enough back, the bulk of the mobs are far enough back where they're not going to actually get to you and kill you. And so that's not really a problem, although you typically take a couple extra hits. However, the real problem is over here, along this thin part of the wall, right where you see me Frost Nova. If you fall off right here, you have probably a 70% chance of dying. And so what I recommend practicing here is just really focus on making sure that you run accurately through here. If you get caught on the left side of the wall, typically when you try to reset that by moving to the right, that's when you fall off. Or if you just have a poor angle and you're kind of running at a diagonal, you'll end up falling off. You want to make sure that you get through this portion right here in order to not fall off and not be killed by the mobs that are chasing you. So that's kind of where the most problematic spot for me has been. But once I've really mastered that, I've been totally fine with that portion, and I haven't fallen off in a long time. And even if I do, I've typically been better at recovering. Nothing crazy with the loot here. I believe it was 6 gold, something like 6 gold for all the kills. I haven't been lucky with good drops yet on it. I've gotten 2 purples so far, but both of the purples were, I can't remember which one it was. It was a main hand sword that sold for, 40 gold. So it's a total of like roughly 80 gold that I made from those 2 purples, but nothing crazy. It is really good experience for people who, want to sit by the entrance. They can literally sit anywhere in this entrance room. Typically I have people just walk in and just sit right here, and that's it. Then they AFK, they watch my stream while I'm doing it, what have you. And just get the free experience. They also get some money out of it. You can sell this boost if you want, but because it's only 94 mobs, I don't like to sell it. I just like to give it out free and just help people out. But here we wrap it up, and you'll notice that I finished with 114 mobs, so that's where the confusion comes from. It was actually 92 mobs. A total time of 11 minutes 45 seconds. It was actually less than that because I hopped in the dungeon and I had to set things up with recording before going. So I think it was closer to like 11 minutes flat or 11 minutes 15 seconds, but still 5 runs of that is less than an hour. Typically I hit lockout with about 10 minutes remaining, so that shows that each run is typically around 10 minutes. 10 minutes for 6 gold is really not bad. That's, almost 7 gold of raw gold, and then any loot that you may have is just extra. I have my Hearthstone set at in Duskwood, and that way I can hearth back. I can mail any good items to my bank, to my bank account, my bank character to sell, and then I vendor everything else. And so I end up making pretty solid gold from this, and so do the people who join, who just get the raw gold and the raw experience. So that's about it for this video, guys. Be sure to check out my Twitch, which is linked down in the description below if you want to see me doing these polls live. And you can let me know if you have any questions down in the comment section below, and let me know what other sort of boosts you want to see me give a tutorial of, because I'm currently learning others. Currently learning Dead Mines, although a little bit slower on that one. And yeah, I hope you guys, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe. And as always, have a good day.